On AM 1480 WYZE, Atlanta's Gospel Voice.
We're playing the songs you know, the music you love. AM 1480 WYZE.
The healthcare community discussion of the nation has finally begun. This all started nearly 20 years ago from the broadcast of the Medical A Team, the undisputed kings of health talk radio. Favorite family dentist Dr. Marlon B. Jackson and favorite family physician Dr. Millard J. Collier. And the legend continues. You are invited to call right now at 404-622-4444 and ask your medical questions because your health is important. And now, Doctors Marlon B. Jackson and Millard J. Collier.
That's right. That's right. Good afternoon, everyone. Remember, you are tuning in to the longest healthcare broadcast in the whole wide world. When I mean the longest, I mean the longest broadcast. Yours truly, Dr. Marlon Jackson and Dr. M.J. Collier, family physician, bringing you health topics and information to increase your medical acumen and wisdom because your health is important. And remember, your health is more than just important. It is your wealth. Your health is your wealth. Don't get it twisted. Without this, baby, you will go unlisted. And for 25 years now, myself and Dr. Collier have kept it real and made it plain, keeping you healthy, free of pain, discussing topics real, with no jive, putting it down to keep you alive. And today is a topic that we're going to put it down to keep you alive and to keep your family alive and to keep our children intact and pure. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're going to talk about something that's kind of rarely talked about in family matters, but it exists. In fact, it's probably more pervasive than we think. And I have a special guest today to talk about those things. Her name is Meshia Bean. How you doing today, Miss Bean?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Miss Bean has written a book, and the name of the book is called Unbroken, and I Am Still Standing. And Dr. Jackson has read the book. Very, very insightful. Parts of it were very, very sad, but I thought it important enough to share Miss Bean's experience to you, the WYZE listeners. Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about what I have in common with Miss Bean. We both, at certain times in our lives, have lived in the state of Denver, Colorado, the place where it's the Mile High City, very scenic place, Red Rocks, Pikes Peak, Yosemite Dam, all kind of things, very scenic place. And it does get cold, and it does snow. They have Vail, Breckenridge, you can ski, all those good things. And I did spend I did grow up there. But I was born in Ohio. I'm an Ohio player now. But I did spend some time in Denver, Colorado, and so did she. Well, first of all, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to keep it real and make it plain with me?
Yes.
All right. Well, we're talking about something that should be extremely important to us all, especially if we have families. We're talking about how to protect our children and what can happen if we don't. First of all, why don't you tell the listeners about your book? And before you do that, why don't you go ahead and give them some contact information?
Okay, my name is Meshia Bean. That's Meshia, M, B as in boy, EAN. My website is wixsite.com/unbroken. And my Gmail is MeshiaMBean@gmail.com.
All right. Okay, well, let's get right on into it. First of all, did you have a childhood to where you were, when we grow up, we play, we have relatives, we have friends. What kind of childhood did you have?
Well, my mother was a single parent.
Okay.
And we lived in Denver, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to go stay with my father in California at times. But in Denver, I didn't have really anyone to play with, like cousins. I had to fend for myself.
Okay.
Until she met friends. They had children. Then I was with them.
Okay. Well, what in particular happened to you that kind of induced you to write this book about being unbroken and that you're still standing? Why are you still standing? I know you got strong legs, yeah, that helps, but I'm thinking you mean psychologically and mentally, right?
Yes, at the age of 6, was living with my grandparents, with my grandmother, and she was married to a man, and he coerced me into trusting him, and he befriended me, and I thought that was my grandfather, and he took my weakness for kindness and took advantage of me and sexually assaulted me.
Oh,
more
okay.
than once.
Okay, that's remarkable and horrible, but we're going to discuss that because I'm sure you're not the only one that has had that experience.
No.
Okay, before we get into a little bit of that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about, I remember when we grew up in Colorado. The boys, we had a kind of a network. Even as a child at age 7, we were very mindful of molesters and pedophiles. I can think of one that they called him, his name was T-Bone. I remember them talking about him. And the boys would always say they knew his car. He had a convertible. And we'd always be told if T-Bone shows up and tries to give you candy, don't take the candy and definitely don't get in the car. So we knew who T-Bone was, and when we saw a car or we saw who we thought was T-Bone, we'd all disappear. But yes, let's talk about that. You were at age 6, you said?
6.
Wow, that's terrible. And tell me how that affected you.
Well, at that time, I was not trusting anyone. But then I was gullible at the same time because I felt that's what I was supposed to do.
Well, gullible. I mean, at age 6, we're just developing some sense of right and wrong, and we're still in that trusting stage at age 6, and that's why our parents normally tell us they kind of watch us and see how friendly we are. For example, some kids are more friendlier than others. In other words, they smile more, they give you eye contact, they may talk to adults and even strangers more than others, okay? That's because of their nature. Children are open. Children, they believe the world is okay, They don't know what the word evil means. They don't even know what prey or predator is. So, they're growing up. They're new. Everything is new on their screen. So, you can't expect to know these things. So, anyway, so you were molested, and it was by a quasi-family member. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, they were in the home.
Yes.
So, your guard is you don't have a guard, and like I said, and then at age 6, you really, really don't know. So, and you said this has happened a number of times. Okay. Now, did you tell your parents, or how did this develop?
No, he used to threaten me.
He used to threaten
me with the gun and saying he'll kill my mother.
Wow.
And cohorts me, giving me candy and toys and money.
Okay, yeah, that's sound like how they groom you. So in other words.
Yes.
So when you first met or saw this person, how did you respond to them? Were they nice, or were they acting that way immediately?
I mean, he was nice. Mm-hmm. He was acting like a grandfather. Mm-hmm. He was married to my grandmother. Mm-hmm. And he used to let me hang around with them all the time. So he was grooming me. Okay, grooming.
All right. Any questions? The phone lines are open. Give us a call, 404-622-4444. Have you been broken? Have you been abused or molested? I know a lot of people will probably be thinking that. They probably are too ashamed to say, but they're probably thinking that, and some have memories. In fact, as you hear this topic today, it may bring something back to you, but this is for people who have kids or children, or even people who have been violated. How do you lead a normal life? That's the question. But you want to share your comments or experience with us, give us a call, 404-622-4444, because your health is important. Well, like you said, is that the first time that has ever, after your quasi-grandfather molested you, is that the last time that has happened?
No, my family's, my best friend's brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. I was always staying the night over at the house, and I was maturing and had breasts, and I already started my cycle, and an older teenager took advantage of me. And I was 10, and he was 19.
Wow.
So then I started being promiscuous, of course.
Okay, we're gonna go through that cycle a little bit, but you hear that, listeners? Our children, the ones that hopefully will carry on our legacy. Okay, hopefully will take care of us as we get older. These precious beings are our jewels. They're everything to us. We must protect them. And we're going to talk about that a little more, but we're going to take this call. Caller, you're live and on the air. All right. If you have any calls, give us a call. The subject today is child abuse and molestation. It's something that occurs far more greater than we think, because too many people that it has happened to are ashamed. They feel it's their fault. They feel that they would be ostracized. So a lot of people carry this chip on their shoulder and their heart, and it's expressed in a lot of ways. Okay, let's get back with Miss Bean. She's, like I said, she had been molested a few times. You said at a certain age, when the second incident happened, how old were you?
I was 10.
You were 10. All right, and the individual that molested you was almost a grown man again.
Yes.
All right. How did that affect you the second time?
It didn't seem like it bothered me from being molested by my grandfather, because he wasn't an old creepy man at the time. Mm-hmm. So I felt that he liked me, and I trusted him, and he treated me different. Mm-hmm. And I felt that was what I was supposed to feel from a man.
Okay, so
at
in
a
other
young
words,
age.
he treated you like you were his little
And I was his
girlfriend.
girlfriend, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. And at that age, at 10 years of age, we still have what I call the need to be accepted and pleasing of elders or adults. So that probably fell right in line with that. So anyway, after you've had these molesting experiences, how were you from day to day? How did you do in school?
Excuse me. In the beginning, I was a good student, but later on, through my years, I was being rebellious and didn't want to go to class.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to listen to my teachers. Didn't want to do homework.
Mm-hmm.
Skipping school.
Mm-hmm.
Just being defiant.
Okay, how was your dress at that time?
I used to sneak clothes out the house. I'd leave one way and go to school in a different way.
Okay, so in
With
other
makeup
words, you looked like
on.
a schoolgirl,
Leaving out.
and then you acted like a grown girl
grown.
once you got out.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, well, I've seen that. So, pretty much what we're saying, listeners, is that if we don't protect our little girls or our little boys, things can happen. We have predators out there that's who they are fixated on, our little girls and our little boys. And they can do horrible things to them and affect them for the rest of their lives. Now, something that's different now that probably was different growing up when you were growing up, and definitely when I was growing up, we have something out here now that is even more pervasive that we must be alert and remain vigilant on, is the internet.
That's right.
The internet. The internet. Why do I keep saying that? Because it's out there, okay? And we take great pride in our children being, we learn how they naturally adapt to the internet and they know how to search and find things. The internet is not like going to the liquor store and they ask you for your ID and then they give you your wine, your beer, or your liquor. All you have to do is click search and type enter. Some sites or some areas may say this is for mature people. Enter only if you're over 18. However, they don't ask for ID. All you got to do is click enter. And then children can be exposed to all kind of sexual websites, mature subject matter, and you don't know. Okay? My whole point with this is know your search history of your children. Know where they're going on that internet. Take the time. Don't be too busy, because especially if they're on there a lot, especially if they're boys 12, 13 years old, entering puberty, they're having feelings that they may not be comfortable sharing with you, but they're having them. Okay? Same with the little girls. You need to know what their history is, because they can get exposed on the internet and they can have some of those same experiences, which could lead them to lost interest in school, more interest in the opposite sex, dressing or doing things to bring more attention from the opposite sex, and essentially just not doing what little boys and little girls do. The phone lines are open. We love to hear from you. 622-4444, because your health is important. Right now, the topic of the day is we're talking about child abuse and child molestation. And we have here our special guest, Meshia Bean, who has written a book called Unbroken, and I'm Still Standing. All right? Give the listeners your contact information again.
My website is MESHIABean.wixsite.com/unbroken. My email is meshiambean@gmail.com. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I can direct you to any services you might need if you have anyone that doesn't want to talk to you or want to talk to a professional.
Okay. Well, first of all, knowing your children and knowing who's been exposed to them, you can have, for example, I do remember something. I'm going to share something with the listeners that wasn't really molestation, but it was an invite. I think I was about 8 years old. I had a babysitter. It was a young lady. She was about 15. And I hadn't heard this game before. I remember the game that I remember was called Hide and Go Seek. And if you don't know what that is, the person that's going to be the seeker, they turn their back, they count to 100 or whatever, and then they go find everybody that's hiding. And if you touch them, and that if you get to that home base, which is where the person started counting at, then you're safe. If you're not, then they can touch you, and if they touch you, then you're it. Then you got to be the one counting and go seek. Well, there was a game, a more mature game was called Hide and Go Get It. And I didn't know nothing about that. Well, my babysitter at the time, while I thought I was playing Hide and Go Seek, she didn't go nowhere. She was very easy to find. And then when I found her, and I said, okay, I touched her like she did. She said, oh, no, we're not playing that game. I said, well, what? She said, well, you found me, so what do you want? I said, well, what you talking about? And she said, well, you want a hug or a kiss? And I was like, I don't know what that is. So, but as I grew older, I knew that was probably a grooming situation. Okay. So everybody is, you may not admit it, but everybody has probably had some degree of that in their lives. Okay. So, you don't want that to happen to your children. Well, that's why you need to spend time with them. That's why you need to monitor them. Know their friends. Okay. Know if they're acting different. Know if they're acting different when a certain person comes around and they want to avoid them like the plague. Okay, right now, let's talk about knowing how to identify child molesters. Okay, how can we spot one? Okay, I'm going to ask you. How can you spot a child molester?
Well, there's placed in 4 categories of pedophiles.
Mm-hmm.
And one is a regressed child offender.
Mm-hmm.
The individual usually has relations with adults, but often wants to be with a child.
Okay.
Someone that they can control.
Mm-hmm.
And another one is called myso pedophile.
Okay.
The offender is interested in molesting and sexually harming or abusing a child.
Okay.
And then a fixated child offender is stuck in the early ages of psychosexuality when the mind is not developed all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And,
well, and in a nutshell, pretty much what we're saying is there are different types of child molesters, pedophiles to molesters. That's why when we have our children, that's why they have to run extensive background checks on teachers, counselors, and the like, because they like to be where children are. Okay, they want to be where children are. I've read in the newspaper a couple months ago about a woman. She had 2 boys, and this man she met, he appeared real interested in her. But when he found out she had 2 boys and that she was a single parent, there we go again with that single parent. If you're a single parent and the children don't have the right close relationship with their father, the father can't be there to protect them. But that man had, gotten in with that woman. Some kind of way he had moved in. Next thing you know, a year's time, it didn't happen right away, but a year's time, come to find out he molested both boys. Okay? By being nice. All right? By being nice, put your children at risk. So that's why I'm saying. And it can affect them for the rest of their lives. It's not something that, you can sweep under the rug and that they'll forget about it. They'll try to repress it, but their actions will do other things. And that's all I'm trying to say to my listeners. If you got boys or girls, protect them, know them. We're in the age of the internet. They ain't got to wait for you to talk about the birds and the bees, adults. You're thinking that you're going to have this conversation with them, and they may be online looking at things that we wish they hadn't, but because you don't check behind them, especially if you're in a well-to-do neighborhood house where every child has a room, they can close the door, and they got the laptop and all that, and you downstairs with your big screen TV caught up in your reality show or whatever, your child knows your habits. They know when to sneak.
That's right.
And they know when to be innocent. So keep that in mind as you're raising your children. But know when they're acting different. Because when they're acting different, and especially as it relates to somebody who's probably been molesting them, pay attention. I think in your book, I'm just going to read one part in the book because it was very, very, very interesting. All right. This was 6 years old when this happened, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is just a certain passage that I'm going to read. As I quickly turned around and started to walk back up toward the stairs, he sat up from the couch so fast, reached out and grabbed me by my arm very hard and said, "Come here and give your granddaddy a hug and a kiss." Picked her up and made her sit on his lap. Okay? That doesn't have to happen. Okay? This has happened to Miss Bean, but it doesn't have to happen to your child. That's why we're on here today, to make sure that we can keep these molesters in check. And we must identify them. If we know there is a molester, the worst thing that we can do is to let them to continue to molest. They need to be identified, eradicated, or arrested and put away, gotten counseling, or whatever they need. In fact, these particular molesters probably molest because they have been molested.
Right.
So this is why this is important. I need y'all to open your eyes to this today. Know that the internet can expose your children to things you don't need. Check your children's search history. Spend more time with your children, especially in that age from, when they get up to 10 years old, they want to be around you. They want to please you. They need an adult figure. And if you're not around, one will be found.
That's right.
So I know we probably need to do this again, which I'm sure we will, but I need you to give the listeners your contact information and website again.
My website is MESHIABEAN.WIXSITE.com/unbroken. And the book is also on Amazon.
All right. I enjoyed the book. Like I said, it was a horrible subject, but I was enlightened, and I wanted my WYZ listeners to be enlightened. Let's put some of this other stuff down that goes on, and remember, we got to protect our children. So open your eyes and stay vigilant. In the meantime, tune in every second and fourth Wednesday right here, 1480 WYZE, because your health is important.
today's conversation with Doctors Miller J. Collier and Marlon V. Jackson. For further information regarding medical information, contact family physician Dr. Miller J. Collier. Call 770-948-5400 for questions on how to make your smile the best part of you. Contact family dentist Dr. Marlon B. Jackson. Call 404-681-3834. Remember, the legend continues. Health care is a right, but good health is a blessing. Tune in every second and fourth Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. right here on WYZE, because your health is important. You better know it.